Hi there, guys, and welcome back to Induction Noise, episode 2, in fact, now. As you can probably tell, my voice is not quite what it should be, thanks to Andre, who recently went to Europe and apparently brought back some foreign strain of Ebola just to ruin my life. Thank you. Of course, the effect of this is that it completely destroys the illusion that I tried to create that this entire podcast and these lovely little introductions of mine are all recorded at the same time, which of course they are not. Because in a moment you're going to be hearing my voice again and it's going to sound perfectly normal. But the other very sad side effect of this being ill business is that I have not had chance to record a new introduction for this episode. So I know you guys have been looking forward to a new introduction and you're going to be very disappointed, but I promise I'll make up for it with some awesome music in the next one. So without any further straining of what's left of my voice, let's get on with the show.
So, welcome back, everyone, to Induction Noise, episode 2.
Yee-hoo.
For the first time ever, we can actually talk about something other than just overrated and underrated cars, which I think we have covered. We don't need to go there again. So today we're going to be chatting about something a little bit different. But before we get there, I want to welcome Niku,
How's it, guys?
Neil.
Hello.
Who's the old guy over there? Andre.
Hello.
And Andre, you've recently had a little bit of a Euro trip, which was obviously a culture shock in terms of their driving and the kind of cars you see on the road there. So why don't you just give us a couple of minutes of what it was like to go over there?
For sure, 100%. So I went to Paris first. Terrible planning because I didn't realize until the day that I flew that the World Cup is in France this year. So I didn't manage to get any World Cup tickets, which was a bit idiotic. But otherwise it was good fun. The car kind of in the center of Paris, at least, the car culture or the kind of cars they drive, the scooters are huge and the cars are very small. Most are hybrids, smart cars all over the place, Brabus smart cars, you see quite a few of those. People park, there's no park distance control because there's full distance and no control.
Park touch control.
You just park, you're like right up against the next car. The scooters are massive. There's 3-wheeler scooters from Piaggio and there's also 4-wheel scooters. It's not a quad bike. It looks just like a scooter, but it's got 4 wheels, which was quite silly. The other interesting thing is all the cars are either black or dark grey or some kind of mixture of the two. It's very rare to see anything other than those colours. Pretty boring in general, the car culture there. And then I went over to Italy.
It's listening from what you've said, it's changed a hell of a lot because I was last in Paris probably 15, almost 20 years ago. And back then, Paris was full of Ferraris, McLarens. You know, all your high-end supercars would be cruising up and down the streets. And you just don't see them anymore because everyone's gone eco-crazy.
You do see the odd 911. I saw a handful, but very few. But I think there's definitely a shift towards. I saw a Urus. Sorry, saw a Urus.
Yeah, we're gonna have to edit that out.
Yeah, take that out.
How about Camrys? Did you see a lot of Camrys going around as well?
Let's not go there again.
No Camrys, but kind of trivia, semi-interesting fact. There's a lot of Corolla estates there.
Okay.
But not only that, did you know that they have a Suzuki version of that? I can't remember what the name is. It is a new Corolla estate, but it's got a Suzuki badge on it. The same that they do in India with the...
Toyota and Suzuki have been doing that a lot with a couple of cars.
I know about the kind of stuff made in India and these small kind of
The
cheapy
Starlet
things. I knew about that.
The 4x4 one, the sort of mini SUV crossover
Yeah, but I mean,
thing.
it's kind of your cheapies that they do it with.
the
was something.
urban cruiser.
Yes, I didn't realize
Probably
that
the worst name for a car ever. The urban
Yes.
cruiser.
The
runs
new
on
Suzuki is
biscuits.
called the Franks, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
Have you heard
geez.
that?
Yeah, that's kind of yeah.
Someone hasn't been doing
Someone
well.
signed off on that.
So anyway, after Paris, you went to
I went to Rome, to Italy for a bit.
see.
I did actually drive in Rome, which was
place,
quite
mate.
interesting. It's not my first time driving in Rome, but it hasn't gotten any easier. It is the most ridiculous place I've ever driven in my life. There's mostly no lines
Can't be
on
worse
the
than the N2.
in certain ways it is. There's no lines on the road, and there's about 4 or 5 cars wide going into an intersection. There's no lines generally, and you kind of you just pray and send it. That's how you go forward.
This
Otherwise,
is the Italian way, isn't it?
it is, and then you need to learn the hand signals, etc.
What is behind you is not important. Eh?
That is pretty much it. And the biggest bullies are the scooters. They kind of bump you off the road and they like throw fists at you. It's quite hectic. What was interesting is the ride that I had. It was when I went to pick up the rental car. It was about 8 o'clock in the evening in Rome, and the traffic was insane.
Terrible.
It took me about an hour to get back to the place, which would have taken me about 30 minutes to walk to. But it was so I was surprised to learn that I'm getting an Italian car because I wanted to get an Italian
You're
car.
probably very excited.
I was actually adamant to get an Italian car, and I got a
Ferrari.
Almost.
Fiat.
This has got
An Alfa?
I got a car with a fantastic racing heritage.
A bath.
It is
Yeah,
one
it
of
must
the
be.
most successful. It's one of the most successful racing marques in history. Let me give you a clue. It's got 5 rally world championships on the trot.
Audi is not Italian, dude.
Well, then,
Are we just trying to troll Andre because he says Lancia?
It is a Lancia, which
No, it's not.
which these days is not a good
Not
thing
in that, yeah.
in Italy. So I've seen a few Lancias around. I saw a what's this Chrysler people carrier mommy van thing. I don't know what the name
almost
is.
said BT
This is a
Cruiser.
Voyager.
No, it's
Your
the
Voyager, you know what I'm
the
talking
Voyager.
about. So you have one of those with the Lancia badge on.
Oh wow!
I saw a 300C Chrysler with a Lancia badge on.
Oh,
So that's quite interesting. But then the best of them all is the Ypsilon, is the one that I had.
sounds like
Bless
an
you.
epileptic.
It is one of the worst new shit boxes that I have driven. It is by far the worst Italian car that I've driven in my life. It is a 1 liter.
And that includes all the ones that broke down.
Yeah, I would have a broken Alpha over this any day, to be honest. So it had a 1 liter 3-cylinder engine, no turbo. But it has this. It's a hybrid, so it has this like curse kind of system where if you brake, it charges the battery, and then it charges this on this gauge. So if this gauge is full, it's supposed to give you some extra poke if you overtake.
An extra 3 horsepower.
According to I didn't go through the effort of researching it and checking the stats on it because I can't be bothered, to be honest. But on the keyring, it said it has 52 kilowatts. I'm not sure if that's with or without the boost. But
Is that the engine or the aircon?
what I can, the aircon was actually fine. That's at least 40 kilowatt of the 52. So, but what I can tell you is that if that gauge is full of this hybrid mechanism, and you want to deploy it like the F1 guys do, if you put your foot down, the gauge goes down, but fuck all else happens. So I
So
don't
it's like
know.
a Ferrari in
It's
life,
either
basically.
it's either not connected or they're just screwing with you. They just Lancia's just taking the mic.
It's just a placebo effect, I think.
I think it is. It feels like it's going to fall over if you go around corners. But then what I found out is there's a little button on the dash that says city or not, and it's in Italian. It says city depressio something.
El Sitio.
Yeah. So what it means is that the steering
Depression
goes
City.
super light. Like
Okay.
you are going over a hill. Yeah, you're going over a yump and you can't feel the steering. So that you can park, you parallel park, and then when you go on the highway, you disable this, so the steering goes less light, but still not proper steering. So at the beginning, I forgot to do that, and it felt like I was going to fall over if you
every time.
But yeah, other than that, it survived. It made weird sounds, wheel bearing sounds, whatever.
Hard plastics.
Yeah, the plastics are the outside
let's
doors. The outside door handles are straight off a Alpha 156 GTA, like beautiful chrome door handles. The inside is from a Chinese takeaway packet, the inside door handle, and the dashboard is soft touch. Speaking of the touch of plastic, it's not plastic, it's soft touch. But I'm pretty sure it's recycled, these grey with the white little spots in, T-shirts and underpants that was used to make this dashboard.
I was wondering why they're collecting all of my stuff.
Some Italian had a very rough meatball, and you got that on your dashboard.
I'm pretty sure I got the spicy meatball.
The spicier meatball.
Yeah.
Right.
Andre,
Well,
do you do the normal thing? What what everyone does when you go to a country where there's a foreign language, you start talking in their accent, even though you can't speak a word of Italian or French. You start with the to try and communicate with the people.
Don't everybody do that?
Yeah, that must
I do it
be.
with the Uber drivers, according to my wife as well. So it's
You start talking
God.
slower in English, like they're stupid, with their accent.
Exactly.
Like that would help.
that would help the case at all.
And the Italian hand signals.
Well, I
which-
do that in any case. So
True.
Right, guys. Well, I just want to use the last little bit of my voice that I have left to thank our amazing sponsors over at Master Panel Beaters. You see, this is the kind of dedication and professionalism that you just don't see in other podcasts. Even when my voice is completely shafted, I am still here doing the voiceovers. So, yeah, check out Master Panel Beaters. They're a major structural and cosmetic repair center out in Montague Gardens. They do amazing work on any type of vehicle, and they are factory approved by a number of really big brands. So I've literally recently just dropped off another car with them to get some work done. I'm getting updates all the time via WhatsApp. Stephen and his team are amazing, and I'm fully confident that when that car comes back, it's going to look as good as new. So you can find Master Panel Beaters on our website. Their details are up there. The details will also be on our Facebook page and our Instagram posts, as well as on their own Facebook page, which you can find by simply searching for Master Panel Beaters. Thanks again.
But yeah, the Lancia kind of perfectly segues into today's topic because it seems to be like the complete polar opposite of what we're talking about today, which is the sports car recipe. What makes the perfect sports car? And to sort of get into that, we sort of have to define what exactly a sports car is, because that definition has been pretty fluid over the last couple of years, and I think a lot of cars that started out as sports cars, I wouldn't really call them sports cars anymore, because they've become either supercars or performance cars, but they're not sports cars anymore. The dictionary, in case you guys were wondering, actually defines a sports car as a small, high-powered automobile with long, low lines, usually seating two persons, but not necessarily.
So not the Lancia Emu or Iku or what?
Ypsilon.
Ypsilon.
Yeah,
'Cause
whatever
you
that is. So I think let's go around the room and we'll see what you guys think is the sort of one-line definition of a sports car. Neil, you've actually gone and researched this, so this better be good.
Yeah, but researched, I mean, like I read the Wikipedia page basically of it with a lot of references that I didn't verify. The name actually, I think, originated apparently around the 1920s, Second World War, and it is, as you said, was a two-door car, typically also a roadster.
Did the Second World War start in the 20s?
The First World War. I'm sorry. Already edit that out, please. Afterwards, Quentin, make me sound like a lot smarter.
There's
than what I am.
another Wikipedia page I can suggest. It's called the World War One, World War Two.
Yeah, exactly. Define the definition. You see, it's because you already fought me on this topic before we even got to recording, so you already threw me off my game.
Just for the record, there's no topic that I haven't fought Neil on.
Exactly. You see, I've come prepared today with my GTR shirt on and everything to defend Varner.
Which
that I
is
missed
not a
out on.
sports car.
Yeah, that's why I gave you the heavy-duty chair.
Heavy preparation.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the topic. So I think for me it's simple. firstly, I think everyone agrees that's, as you also mentioned, it's a moving target, right? So later on, it's gotten like different iterations. It's now got not just two-door, it's a 2+2, or, you know, four-wheel drive or front-wheel drive, which I guess takes away from the recipe. But in my mind, I think not in terms of a sentence, but in terms of a car, I think something like the MX-5 is like the true ethos of the genesis of the sports car recipe, basically.
Is it though? What is the textbook definition? Just give us the start of that.
So
again.
the textbook definition is a small high powered.
I'm going on the 1920s definition of sports car, basically. Which
Yeah,
is
well,
like,
in 1920, 200 horsepower would have been a huge amount of power. So I guess you could say
Yeah.
the MX-5 is.
look, I guess two doors, front engine, rear wheel drive, manual.
Yeah.
That sort of recipe, I think, would be like the base of it, and then you can now build it from there.
I'm going to play devil's advocate. What about a front wheel drive? Like you had this is maybe not a good example.
So it's not a sports car, basically.
No. Wait. Do you guys remember the Hyundai Tiburon?
Yeah, I think so. yeah,
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first ones
So-
looked like a spider.
So not
A rip-off Silica, basically.
just to be clear,
Yeah.
not that I want one, but I did think
Like
they
a
were cool.
Celica that
I
you
didn't think they
ordered
were
off
cool at the
Wish.
time. When I was a teenager, I thought they were kind of cool.
But
But
the Need for Speed
they
phase.
they coupes, right? They little sports car. They've got a sports car kind of silhouette to them. They're kind of longer. What they say, like a long kind of.
Yeah, that low,
They
low,
low
long
slung.
line.
You sit low. And it had a relative kind of performance engine from a hot hatch at the time, a 2-liter 16 valve, which at the time was like super boss kind of like
Yeah,
100
speed.
odd kilowatts or whatever. It used to be like a performance car kind of category in those days. 100 kilowatt today is not even a shit box. But it used to be performance car kind of entry level category then. But it's front wheel drive, right?
Would
So-
you
So-
define it as a sports car?
I think at the time it was. I don't have to
think-
like the definition.
I think you're wrong, but what would your absolute one-line definition of a sports car be then?
I'm happy with the textbook definition of it. For me, what I would experience as a sports car would have to be something that is, I would also go for rear wheel drive if you want a sports car. 4-wheel drive to me, now you're going to get the Porsche guys go, yo, but my Carrera 4S is better than the 2 and, it must feel exactly the same, etc. Anyway, let's not go from that topic. But for me, a sports car, the purest sports car recipe for me is, like you said, rear wheel drive, probably manual to be fair, but then you get into like weird territory. So my car is kind of a sports car, but it's got a DSG box, so it needs to be rear wheel drive.
But
Needs
your
to
car
be.
is kind of specialist as well.
It's a bit of a weird niche thing.
Is it a performance car, maybe? Your car?
Yeah, but is it? You can't say it's not a sports car, can you?
No, you can't, but
So like you said, I think it's kind of it's a moving target, but rear wheel drive to me would be the preference for a sports car. I think it needs to be low slung. One thing for me, it shouldn't be too heavy, which in these days that's not really the thing. Even Lotus makes
350 said what?
well, even Lotus, dude, the new Lotus,
Do you want to take it
Lotus.
outside quickly?
Someone hit the pause button. Someone hit the pause button.
No, sorry, Neil's in a different weight class.
I'm
I
gonna
can't.
feel like
I would have taken you on, Neil, but it's not fair. You're in a different weight
I'm
class.
gonna pull an Ashwin Willemson walk-off set here, basically.
Wow.
Yes, I missed one episode, and I'm like the target here.
So I think what I've just been saying is I've just been answering my own question that I don't really know what a sports car is, and I'm not qualified to say what it is.
Well, it was nice to have you. Thanks for coming.
That for the bad info I could have added.
Nico, what would you say? I mean, what is your one-line definition?
so I'm kind of also when Andre was now speaking, I would see my car as a sports car, which is front wheel drive,
Yes.
manual.
I
So
thought
I
about
would
yours too.
say
I would
my
also call it.
A GTV or a Spider is a sports car.
GTV, so my definition would be a two-door coupe or convertible,
Yeah.
right? Low slung with let's not call it normal suspension. Let's call it a bit more tightened up suspension. with a bit of a hotter motor compared to a normal, because I mean you'll get something that has looks like a sports car or whatever maybe, but it doesn't have the tighter steering rack, the more performance motor.
And that's relative though, because I mean you can have the tightest setup Peugeot coupe, right? As an example, let's say you get a Peugeot coupe that's low slung, everything, it's front wheel drive, it's the tightest setup one. But then you go into a stock standard BMW 2 Series coupe, that's a, what do they call it, 220i or something, and it may have a tighter suspension than you know what I mean? So it's all relative.
It's true, it's all relative, but I mean, you're not gonna, if you look at it like that, let's say you get in a 2 Series, right? Normal 2 Series makes good power, whatever, but there's a specialist version of the 2 Series. So I would say if there's a normal version of that sports car type to be, you can call then you can probably call it more performance sports car. So
I don't agree with that though. I don't agree that to be a sports car it needs to be the highest powered version of something. That's more like a halo.
Well, I didn't say just the highest power.
No,
More
power, but I mean the more sporty version of a specific model.
Well, let's take the normal 2 Series as an example. You got the M kit for that, which included the M suspension, like your 120. So it included the M suspension, other bushings, etc.
But mine was not a sports car. I mean, it handled like a sports car, but it's not a sports car.
But that's where the performance car topic for me comes
No, I
in
think
personally.
with mine specifically, it's the engine that killed it. Because a sports car can't have a diesel engine.
That is true.
It needs the revs,
Yeah.
and the diesel doesn't have any revs.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got one part that we all agree on: petrol motor.
Yes.
Petrol motor, manual gearbox is still a grey point.
So no Tesla Roadster then, I take it.
No, please.
Get out.
God.
I'm just trolling.
So we've so far we've had one sort of dictionary definition. We've had one. I'm not quite sure what that was, Andre, and you're also sort of
in between
things.
Defending the M-boys, basically.
So-
Defending the M-boys.
But-
You're talking about the M2, which is quite possibly the ugliest car ever to surface.
But I must say,
this decade.
I do disagree with. I do disagree with that. You can't. I wouldn't say that what Nico said around. Let's say you've got a. Let's say you had an M5. You had an MX5, right? With a. What did the old ones have? Like 110 kilowatt or something. But there's a version with a 200 kilowatt engine. The one's a sports car and the other one's not a sports car. I wouldn't go.
They're both sports cars, I would argue.
I would say if the recipe is there,
Okay.
it's a sports car, unless it's got a diesel engine, we determine. That excludes it.
Yeah, I mean, diesels just don't make good sports cars.
Can we base it off boot size? Maybe if you can't fit X amount of size luggage in the boot, it's a 2-door, 2-seater. Because I
That's an
can't fit
interesting
jack
metric.
shit in my Spider.
I don't think boot size is a good metric for what makes a sports car. I think, I honestly think we're trying to overcomplicate something here. And the analogy that I came up with when I was trying to figure out what my definition is for a sports car is kind of like Italian cooking. Okay, I love Italian cooking. And the great thing about Italian cooking is that if you want to make it better, you simplify. You use the freshest ingredients you can find. You can combine them in a specific method and whatever, but you don't overcomplicate it. You don't put a whole bunch of spices and stupid crap in it and, dress it up to be something it's not.
You got something against the Indians with it, with
Oh no, I love
spicy-
Indian food too. I'm just saying, for Italian food, you keep it simple. You just want the simple, basic flavors coming through. And for me, that's what a sports car should be. It should be simple. It should be basic. It should be something that has been stripped down to the point where the only thing that it is designed to do is put a smile on your face. It doesn't have to be fast. It doesn't have to be rear drive. It doesn't have to be any specific thing. It just needs to be stupidly fun. And generally speaking, that's going to tend to go towards things that have got a little bit more power, perhaps a nice characterful engine that lets you rev it out and do stuff with it. It's going to be, leaning towards a manual rear drive setup. so there's going to be certain things that lead into that, but at its core, a sports car should be designed to be fun, not fast, not flashy. Those things can come with the territory, but at its core, it just has to be fun to drive.
I think what you actually, you touched on a good point there. What you're saying is we've been talking about what's the definition, the baseline definition of a sports car, but that's less important than I think what we're going to go over now into discussing is what should a good sports car be.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's you can argue that certain things qualify as a sports car, but whether you would want to drive it is a different story.
It kind of like for me touches on some of the when you say like what are we defining? It kind of like feels like are we excluding certain cars from the list purely based on what wheels they're driven? But I think in general. Again, to go back to my late night 5-minute research topic, I think the conclusion to that sort of is that the bar is always changing, right? And there's so many different things, but I like what you said about it needs to be fun. That's I think is a good.
That is something for me that I think even though the bar is constantly changing, and we're constantly getting cars that have stupid high performance or ridiculous grip levels or silly yaw control systems that make it corner better, a la GTR. At the end of the day, from the 1930s all the way through to today, what makes a good sports car is that it's fun to drive. And that's why I think stuff like MX-5s, GT86s, the little GR Yaris, they're all...
Yaris is not a sports car.
The Yaris is not a sports car.
It's a performance car.
It's a performance car, but it's got that little element of, like a little excited terrier. It just wants to jump around and do fun things.
But that's the definition of a hot hatch.
Yes.
When you speak
But a
about
hot hatch, I might argue, is the poor man's sports car.
No,
but it's not a sports car.
But it's not a sports car.
It's for the poor man who can't afford a sports car, buys a hot hatch, and drives it like a sports car.
Thanks, I need reminding of that. It's cool. Whatever.
To be fair,
We have to keep it grounded.
to be fair, that fucking Yaris is about the price as the new GR86.
But price has nothing to do with it, right?
Price has nothing to do with it. No, that's just the Yaris
Look,
is just
you're going to
plain,
get cheap
hot
sports
hatch.
cars, you're going to get expensive sports cars. Does that mean that a cheap sports car is worse than a more expensive one? No. Not necessarily. I mean, I had, for example, a lot of guys will argue with me in this. I had an SLK 55 AMG, which I traded in on an 86, a first-gen 86. I enjoyed the 86 more than the SLK. It was a more fun car for me to drive than
It was a
the
better
SLK.
sports car because the 55 AMG was more of a muscle car, right?
Yeah, it's the SLK for me suffered a major personality crisis. It wasn't quite sharp enough and
You weren't
light
sure
enough.
whether you're a hairdresser or a drag racer.
Something along those lines, yeah. And it was just that little bit too hard to be a GT car, but a little bit too soft to be a sports car, and it just sort of sat in this uncomfortable middle ground where it wasn't really great at anything.
Can we say a sports car is something that you can drive damn near close to 99? Because something like a supercar or more performance car, you're gonna have to be a proper driver to drive it on 99. With a sports car like a 86 or MX-5 or my car, you still not gonna just go climb out of a Lancia what and drive drive the crap out of it, but it's something that you can get closer to the limits with.
By definition, you would be able to get closer to the limits of a sports car than a supercar because supercars are so fast. So I would expect it for most sports cars, but I don't think that's a requirement. I think it's a fun one would have you do it. The Alpha 4C, for instance, most people wouldn't get close to the limit.
No, not at all.
But that's kind of a sports car.
And you wouldn't necessarily want to get close to the limit because that car will bite you if you go over.
You don't want to die every week.
And it's it's going to be different for each car because like my 86, that car really comes alive at the limit. You really have to drive that car at the limit to get the best out of it and put the biggest smile on your face. Whereas something like my Honda S2000, which I would argue was an equally great sports car, that was more of a 8 out of 10 car. You don't want to drive that at 10 tenths because when that thing bites you, it bites very quickly. And yeah, I mean, that can get quite hairy very, very quickly. The Z4, again, was leaning more towards the 86 side of the equation, where, you know, it was quite a forgiving thing and it enjoyed being sort of danced with and getting it moving under you with that sort of, not quite drifting, but that fluid moment of grip where
More
you've,
power
where you've
slide
got
than a drift.
grip, but it's still moving under you, if you know what I mean. And that, for me, is something that I enjoy in a car. But equally, like I said, the S2000 didn't enjoy doing that, but it was still a brilliant sports car.
I would almost like to say it's something that you'll enjoy on a back road, right?
Yeah.
It's something that, I mean, because the funny thing is all the cars that we're talking about is not, you know, relatively high power. So it is kind of like that thing where you can really, you know, instead of taking the highway, you take a back road and you feel comfortable, maybe, you know, pushing it on a little bit. Whereas I would probably, you know, anything more than 250, 300 kilowatt plus would probably be a little bit scary, right?
Yeah.
To drive. So it's quite interesting, you know, that's kind of like where we are. I feel like we're leaning towards.
But I don't. But it feels like we kind of. I don't think we should focus. Sports cars aren't only, you know, 100 kilowatt, 200 kilowatt
No,
cars.
definitely not.
There are 300 kilowatt sports cars. There
Correct.
are 350, which wouldn't qualify as, for instance, a Porsche Cayman GT4. Brilliant sports car. Or the Boxster RS or something. Brilliant sports car. You know, high powered. The thing goes over 300 k's an hour. But it wouldn't qualify as a supercar.
No.
Which is a bit of a technicality, to be honest, because it's damn fast and it's got that kind of profile.
Well,
but
10
that's
years
a
ago,
brilliant sports car.
10, 15 years ago, you would have called it a supercar because it was, I mean, that's supercar quick.
You wouldn't, because you're not even allowed to call the 911 a supercar, and this one is
Although
below the
911,
911.
911 fans would argue that point to the death, and the 911 is a supercar.
Well, 911
But-
fans left last episode when Q roasted them, so.
Yeah, my bad. So that was half our listener audience just gone out the window. But anyway, let's see if we can draw some conclusions here. On first of all, power. What kind of power should a sports car make? And if I may just jump in here, I don't think there's a specific power number that you should go for. I think the
adequate
power
number for the package.
I think your power to weight ratio is quite important, first of all. And I think the engine needs to be something that's got character. It needs to be rewarding to rev it out. It needs to, something like the S2000, for example, that engine had so much character. It was useless at low revs and it had no torque, but it was so much fun to play with the damn thing and to stir the gearbox to get the best out of it. And I would argue the 86, flawed as that powertrain is as well, it kind of makes it fun because you got to work for it. So something with a bit of character.
So you're saying you need revs?
I
is an
like
important.
I like something that revs, but it doesn't have to have revs.
But let's use your analogy of the recipe, right? So every recipe is different, right? If you have something with a higher powered engine, you need other elements in the package that suits that.
You
right?
need
So
you
it's the
need
same-
balance in the whole thing.
So to use the example of Andre's 4C, for instance, part of the balance of that car is the fact that it's got a DSG box. It's super light. It's got the right paired motor to it. You know, it becomes so that's, I think, you know, why it can't just be an MX-5 works, because I think the transmission, the engine, the chassis, it all is in harmony with one another. So maybe,
Exactly, that's-
you know, for me, it's like, you know, the sports car doesn't have to have a specific power, or, you know, doesn't have to have maybe have soft roofed or a coupe, but you need the package needs to be harmonized, that everything, you know,
You need that
works well
balance.
together.
Which is exactly what you've said earlier about your SLK 55 AMG.
Yeah.
That engine, that V8 engine, is brilliant. I love that
rest
motor.
of it's a
It
bit
sounds lovely. It's great.
Yes.
It's also got character in its own way, like a brute. It's a proper powerful thing. And then the car is more of a sports car, lighter kind of shell, whatever. So, but it doesn't work together. It doesn't work putting a muscle car engine into that tiny thing.
No,
It doesn't
in
work
fact,
well.
since then I've driven quite a few of the 350 SLKs, and even though it's a slower car, for me that's actually a better balanced car. The nose isn't quite so heavy, and the suspension is more set up for what the car is and what it can do. So the AMG almost goes that little bit too far. I think it's a really fun exercise in stupidity, but it sort of shoots itself in the foot a little bit.
It's I think it's fun in an interesting kind of, like you said, kind of in a silly way. Yeah. You light up the tires, you have some fun, but you're not going to go do lap times or anything with it. You're not going to enjoy yourself on a a B road at pace. It's going to become a bit hairy.
And that exactly was kind of the problem for me with it, because for the first couple of months that you own it, you love it because you think it is the coolest thing since sliced bread, that you put your foot down and it just goes. I'm going to do that again.
Makes you giggle.
Makes you giggle, and it shoots off down the road like its arse is on fire. But it kind of gets old. And once you sell it and you get into something else, you don't miss it.
It's a one-trick pony, right?
Yeah.
It accelerates fast, that's it. You can do that with a Mustang as well.
In the same breath, a lot of really great sports cars are one-trick ponies. Like the 86 is definitely a one-trick pony. It's brilliant on a twisty road like Clarence Drive, but put it on a highway and it's hopeless.
But I mean, on a highway, like, is that really? I don't think a sports car needs to be great on a highway.
Exactly.
No, it doesn't.
Really, as long as you can, it mustn't be too slow. I mean, you can't have like a, something that doesn't go 160 k's an hour. But I mean, that car can do 200 k's an hour if you really try and fill out application form. It can get to 200. I think.
I did. My 86 did 190-ish on the back straight of Killarney.
That must be a very ambitious speedometer. That
Quite possibly, but I mean, you just go through turn 3 and 4 pretty much flat out, and just before the braking zone on turn 5, you're pretty much at just under 200-ish.
That's pretty decent.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Did you buy it second hand from VW?
No, I bought it brand new from Toyota.
Oh.
And then I had to take it back to them and try and explain to them why the brake fluid's boiled. But that's a topic for a different podcast entirely.
Alpha just replaced after a tractor. Alpha on the maintenance plan, they just replaced my discs and my pads in the front and didn't ask any questions. So
There you go,
nice.
sir. Enjoy.
So, I mean, powertrain, I think then we can say it needs to have sufficient power and it needs to be balanced with all the elements in the car. But there's no minimum requirement for a sports car. I mean, a sports car with 100 kilowatts is still a great sports car.
It needs to be balanced. It needs to be able to brake as well.
Yeah.
Which means in relation to what it has, right? A MX-5 is not going to have the brakes of a
No.
of a big sports.
That's the next thing I wanted to get onto is handling. I think a sports car has a prerequisite to be a good handling car. Not
Must have
necessarily
decent handling.
Not necessarily has to have a lot of grip, which is a completely different thing.
Yes.
But it has to be a really nice, balanced handling car. And that's what the MX-5 particularly does brilliantly well. Doesn't have a lot of grip. It's got skinny little tires. The 86 is the same story. It's skinny little tires. They're not overly grippy. And going through twisties, a hot hatch is probably quicker.
It's got engaging handling.
It's got engaging handling, and you can dance with the thing. That's, you can make it move under you, and it's controllable in a slide. But that, I'm shooting myself here because at the same time, the S2000 is not that. And it's still a brilliant sports car.
But it handles pretty well. I mean, if you can't drive it, they have loads of grip. They do drive well. They are a bit tricky on the limit.
They are.
But they do handle well. You can put in good lap times with those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call a sports car track tool either.
No.
So for me,
I'm just saying
like,
it handles well.
Yeah, no, 100%. But for really, I mean, you mentioned the GT4 earlier as well. These sort of like which are pure, which by definition are sports cars. But I mean, really, for me, it's not. I don't put sports car and the track together. It's something that I imagine on Clarence Drive, and I can just enjoy.
It doesn't have to be.
I don't want to be. I don't want to drive at 9 tenths. I don't want to drive at 10 tenths. I want to drive at 6 tenths, and it must be fun. In my opinion,
look,
like it's.
You don't have to go to track to break, to break lap records. But I would say that if a track day comes up and you feel like going onto it on a track day just to have some fun and do like a
definitely,
handful of laps.
Oh, a sports car should be good on
sports car
track.
should be able to deal with that if you wanted it to. It shouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to fall over, I don't have brakes. It should still work on track. You won't go as fast, but with the MX-5, you'll have loads of fun on track.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm going back to a definition here now, but thinking of that, mustn't a sports car maybe also be let's say cheap to maintain from a track day? So let's say you cook your brakes.
No.
Well, not cook your brakes, but
Look,
you need to replace something after a track day, because let's be
I
honest, a
think
track day
that's
is rough on stuff like brakes, etc.
I think from a practicality point of view, yes, you would want that. But
it's not the
I don't think
definition,
I don't think
No.
that's going to change whether something is a sports car or not.
To be honest, the listeners could have just read the Wikipedia page, and we could have just skipped this whole debate of what it was.
So go
what it
to
really is,
www.wikipedia.com.
If you don't have the time to listen to the podcast, you can just go on Wikiwin and Google it.
No, but
we're better than Wikipedia.
But I do think, well, it's a good point. But you would want that, right? You preferably want something that's not that expensive. But something like a Porsche Boxster or a Cayman GT4, if you're going to do the brakes on that thing, it's going to cost you a pretty penny.
Yeah.
But it's still a great sports car.
Absolutely.
I mean, but like we said, it's more for if you go on a breakfast run and you go through the twisties with it in Mexico. That would be, that's the kind of car that you'd want to drive. It needs to be able to do that. It needs to be able to go on a track day if you wanted to, not to break records, but to have fun. And you should be able to, with a sports car, you should be able to drive it to work if you wanted to. Not daily necessarily, but it should be usable. A sports car should be usable.
But now here comes an interesting one for you guys, because I kind of think that sports cars also have subcategories, because you're gonna have sports cars that are your super light toys, like your car,
Lotus,
those
the
kind
old
of
Lotus.
Exige,
Let's
though.
just be
Yeah,
clear.
the old Lotus.
The pre silly season Lotus is the ones
The
that didn't weigh
pre-Vaya,
2
etc.
tons.
Then you get up to your sort of Porsches and some of your BMWs and some of the heavier, slightly more refined cars. But then I think there's a further step where one could argue that a really good, well-sorted GT car can also be a good sports car.
Yes and no, but because the original definition said it should be a lightweight car, which something like a Bentley, right? A
Bentley
Bentley
is a
coupe.
bit too heavy.
No, well, I mean it's still like a high powered.
Look, a Bentley is an incredible performance machine, and
Yes.
if you take a Bentley onto a twisty road, there are very, very few sports cars that'll keep up with it. But
as a sports
it's
car,
not
no.
going to put
That's
the
a
smile
luxury
on my.
car.
It's not going to
Yeah.
put the same smile on my face that an MX-5 would. Yeah, I would argue that the Bentley is probably. It's a fantastic GT car, but it's not a great sports car. Whereas something like the DB9, which I took to Clarence on one of our runs, that was a surprisingly good sports car.
Well, it
that road.
qualifies as a sports car in my mind. That qualifies as a sports car.
The DB9 was marketed as the GT car, and the V8 Vantage was the sports car out of the Aston range. And I would say the
True.
DB9 is a much better GT car than the V8 Vantage, and I would argue it's probably a better sports car too, because it feels a lot lighter than it actually is when you're driving it. And
I
it's
think
quite
you
a
can-
nimble thing to throw around, Clarence.
But,
Right?
but I think that the weight topic is something, especially in a modern automotive.
I don't
world,
think you
like
should comment on weight. though.
Neither should I probably if we are fair.
Well, actually, like basically Judas Steenkamp here, who is actually in the interim driven my 350Z, is not
The
commented on it
350Z
on
is
it- on
awesome,
it.
dude. 350Z is great.
I'm
I thought we
waiting
were
for him-
talking about a GTR. Sorry.
I'm waiting for him to back me up here. He's just giggling away in the background. I'm like, do you want to add something to this conversation?
No, I thought you were talking about the Skyline GTR. But on that topic, I actually think that the 350Z is one of the best bang for buck sports car recipes you can buy at the moment.
I would say that's pretty fair.
I drove it through Clarence Drive, the one in Mexico, and it really
El Clarencio.
El Clarencio, and it feels nice. It feels good. Look, I mean, your car is properly set up. It makes a difference. You've got the right tires on there. Your alignment and stuff's properly set up. More kind of intermediate kind of track day sort of setup. I think that makes a difference. But it feels nice. It turns in nicely. It's. I think if you're going to get to the limit, we swapped out cars in the day. If you are going to start pushing on and you're going to drive at 10/10s, you're going to maybe feel the weight at the front. But as a sports car to have fun, I think it's great. I think it can qualify. You can take it on a track day you have. I think it really works. What I love is the recipe. It really holds true to that recipe. And the weight thing, it's not that heavy. It's as heavy as it's as heavy as the BMW coupes and stuff, right? I mean, it's no heavier than that.
I mean, I'm not. I mean, and by the way, I think the last episode about the GT, I think you guys did speak a lot of sense about it, regardless of all our jokes of it. But weight has become a relative topic in the automotive industry these days because the engineering as also in the components, the brakes, the suspension, all of it is so much better. You say like the Aston is you don't feel the weight of it, right?
No, you don't.
So I think there's a lot of it's one should be careful not to just identify that as a topic because typical as purists, right? We all talk about, and from us who's involved in racing, weight is the big thing we all talk about continuously. But I think that becomes a topic later on. As you said, when you start pushing really 10/10s, I mean, Bentley built a GT3 car, very successful GT3 car of the Continental. So I think, a lot of the engineering these days as to a point where it masks the weight quite well. And you can really still feel that sports car element.
Just to get back to the Bentley for a second, I just want to share this because I thought it was freaking hilarious when I found this out. At some point, I can't remember exactly when it was, but Bentley was heavily criticized for the Continental GT being too heavy and not quite a sports car. So they went and built this, I can't remember whether this was the Super Sports or the Bentley GTC Speed or what it was, but anyway.
It's kind of a performance version of it.
A performance version of the Continental, and they went and they put carbon fiber everywhere and they gave it a little bit more power and they gave it carbon ceramic brakes and they shaved the roof off and they put carbon fiber there and they put carbon fiber here and they took this out and they took that out. And at the end of the day, the car was like 300 kilos heavier than when they started.
Oops. But it looks
I just
cool.
thought it was brilliant.
But that's actually quite that funny story. I shared a video to Misha from the Nürburgring videos yesterday about this guy with the BMW M4. And he rocks up there and he's like, oh, yeah, I've got these tires on and it's kind of standard, but I've got this and check these stickers on it and whatever. And Misha takes this guy for a lap in his own car around the track. This guy soils himself before the second corner and he's like, oh, can this car do this?
I genuinely saw him praying at one
stage.
stage.
I was praying at one point. First all the expletives and then he started praying. But the guy was truly terrified and he's like, yeah, but I don't go around here like this. Now I can see this guy going around there, around this corner at 100 k's an hour, where Misha goes through it like 220. And, you get people that are the first buyer of that car is like, oh, I need more power, I need more whatever. Yeah. The guy's idea of performance driving is, not
different.
even scratching the surface.
But that we're going a little bit off topic here, but that's something that I've come across quite a lot as well, because I started doing track days and stuff a number of years ago and started hanging out with people who are genuinely talented professional racing drivers. And I think as car guys, we generally tend to think of ourselves as better than average drivers. And some of us think of ourselves as brilliant drivers, but you don't realize how crap you actually are
until you start racing.
Until you sit in a car with someone who really can drive.
Yes.
And you go, how the hell did he just do that? Because there's no way that my brain can even comprehend going around this corner at that speed, and this guy's just doing it like, it's normal.
With two fingers on the
No,
wheel,
but that's a very good point. Sometimes you don't need an extra 300 horsepower. You just need a set of balls or skills, to do it.
Driver mod.
Driver mod.
Driver mod.
So anyway, back to sports cars. Can we agree that some GT cars, at least, do make good sports cars?
I want to just make my suggestion is there's an exception there. That original recipe and what you further said, simplicity, that's very important. What a sports car should not be is a luxury car.
Yeah.
It should not be draped in leather and wood and have all these extra, like of a Bentley. A ton of that is just like internal switches and watches on the clocks on the dashboard, etc. So
Cow skin.
if a GT car is not like over the top, if it's not like a luxury car,
like a DB9. I mean,
a GT car.
that's on the edge.
a DB9, I will grant you, it's probably on the edge, but it in its capabilities, the way that it feels to drive, and the way that it felt for me to drive that thing at, relatively decent pace around Clarence Drive. Obviously, it's not my car. I wasn't going 10/10ths or anywhere near it, but it was so much fun, and it communicates to you. I think that's another thing that a sports car really should do. It should talk to you.
But I think
when you chuck it into a corner, you should be able to feel what it's doing, and you should feel that balance and everything.
It's close enough to a sports car. By the definition, if you want to buy that as a sports car, go for it. That's my opinion.
Sorry, Neil. But I mean, that's the point of a GT car. You should be able to go on a nice cruise with it, and when you reach the coastal line, have a blast in it.
It should be able to do long distance driving and be a sports car.
So no wonder
things can be
a lot of GT cars could kind of have sport car
DNA
attributes or whatever to it. Yeah.
So you would want them to have kind of
exactly.
You would want them to have those attributes, but then also have the comfort and the legs to go on longer journeys.
Yeah.
I personally just think like if it's a GT car with sports car attributes, then if that's what you want, because in most cases, especially if something like that's a daily driver, you're going to use the GT car aspect 95% of the time, 99% of the time. I think that's a plus. And if there's cars out there that fill that, but then it's not. It's a GT car with sports car attributes, and that's awesome. And I also agree with Andre.
It's close enough to a sports car. If you want to call that a sports car, go for it, because you're going to use it like a sports car. I'd say
because it's less compromised than a pure sports car, in my opinion, right? Of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I think it's, like I said, I think sports cars can be subdivided into different categories.
Are you going to buy a DB9? Is that why you like,
No.
the GT as a sports
us
car?
Look, I love DB9s, but I don't think one is going to be on my shopping list. It's
oh, yes, there's a Jag that's taking up that space. A Jag, man.
There's a
fenders
Jag,
that explode.
And before that, I think there's a Harper that needs desperate attention.
Plus, this is a safe space. You can ask us if we think an XK is actually a sports car as well, right?
I think the XK is very much in the same vein as the DB9, because it's a GT car, but it does have sports car attributes, and you can use it as a sports car.
Except for the first bit there, it must be small, right? With the performance.
Yeah, it's not exactly small. It is quite.
Well,
a large car.
neither is the Porsche 911, but we won't go there again.
Yeah, the new 911 is apparently not the size of a bus, but still quite large.
We should have actually put a poll out before this podcast to the group, right? To ask really to help us with this, because it's such a...
How many people stopped listening to us after hearing our comments on the 992?
But here's the thing. I think if we did put a poll out and we allowed it to be open so that everyone can add their own little thing, you would have as many responses as you have people coming back to it, because everyone's going to have their own little thing of what makes a sports car. And yeah, for me, it's a feel thing. I think it really boils down to a feel thing, and a sports car has a specific feel to it, and when you feel it, you know it.
For me, weight is important, but that's a personal thing.
Weight is definitely
For me,
important.
weight is important because you just feel more in one with the road. Yes, I agree with you. There are heavier cars that feel well, that handle well, etc. But there's still like an edginess to a light car that I just love.
It's because you love carbon.
For the last,
it's true.
For the last couple of minutes, then let's try. If we can't agree and focus on a definite recipe for a sports car, can we at least agree that there are certain aspects of a car that would make a sports car better, such as adding more lightness?
Yeah.
There's not a sports car in the world that wouldn't be better if you made it lighter.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I'd also
that's
agree with
interesting.
that.
I would also say that the sort of textbook response of add more power is not necessarily going to make it better, because if you take something like an 86 or an MX-5 and you just add more power, you're going to make it a worse car.
You need to add everything, and then you're
That's
adding
the thing.
brakes. Now you're adding handling. Now you're adding tires. At the end of the day, you could just go out and buy something that's already
exactly.
there.
Yeah. I think we've kind of reached a conclusion here in that there is no defined recipe for a sports car. I think a sports car is a very fluid thing.
It can't have 4 doors.
It can't have 4 doors.
Or
No,
can
it
it?
can't have.
Or can it?
No,
Or
no,
can it?
no. It
Let me
can't.
give you a good example.
But simply having 2 doors does not make it a sports car.
That's true, but hear me out
Ooh,
here.
wait, I think I know where you're going with this. Okay, I'm on Andre's side.
No,
I'm on Andre's side without
Okay.
hearing.
So we're not biased at all. Neil is wearing his Alfa Romeo Racing T-shirt at the moment. The Alfa Giulia, right? So Alfa wanted to make a sports car before they made this beautiful new 33, which, by the way, I mean, that's a bit mind-blowing.
It's
Most beautiful
crazy.
car in the world at the moment,
And there's only
Over-
33 of them.
or very close to it. So only 32 for you guys after I've taken mine.
Mine. I'm still waiting for my spec sheet, you know. But
But anyway, the point I wanted to make with that was, so Alfa had the Alfa Giulia Quadrifoglio, very fast 4-door, like an M3 competitor, broke the sedan lap record at the Nürburgring took years for the other guys to catch up with much more expensive cars. And then Alfa said, we need a sports car, but we don't really have another shell. We don't have money. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to get Kimi Räikkönen and Giovinazzi and help them develop this car, take it to Sauber, make it wider, put on aero kits on it, and charge about 3 times what
Take out the back
a QV
seats.
cost. We take out the back seats, so it's only got 2 front seats. It's lightened. It's got
roll
it's got
cage.
center lock wheels on. It's a serious. If you didn't know that it was based on the shell of a sedan, it would be a very serious sports car.
Is it a sports car or is it a race car?
or is the performance
It's not a
car?
race car. It's road legal, and it's actually quite usable. They say so.
But my Harper's a race car and that's road legal.
But your Harp is a sports car.
but your
This
opposite
but is
canoe.
It is a sports car.
What is the what is
It has no doors.
what does Alpha define? I'm
Max
interested to know
two-door.
what when Alpha released the brochure of that car. What did they define it as?
The GTAM.
It's probably.
so
To be fair, if you have to probably go into it, they probably defined it as a super saloon.
Look,
I think
Yeah.
it's that in the Project 8. It's
I'm
in the
just being
same
facetious
mold,
here.
right?
I was just trailing a bit, but it does show you that the definition is so
Yeah.
wide and pliable. If you weld up the rear doors, then that would be a sports car.
But I would, we talked about the GT, but I would then say that's an extremely capable super saloon that's
Yeah.
dialed up to 16 or 17, basically.
Yeah.
Probably fair.
sorry, that's not
Q-
me taking
Q
a
is-
leak. I'm
Q
just pouring
is-
some water.
Emptying his bladder, you guys. Help.
Speaking
Blink,
of taking
blink 3 times.
speaking
or-
of taking a leak, sorry guys, I just need to tell you this about the going from GT to TP. So in Italy, one of the interesting things in Italy is the TP or the toilet paper. They have low profile toilet paper
Oh,
in Europe,
God.
right?
So is it like sports TP?
It's a
So
lightweight.
it's also 2-ply, similar to what we have.
Does it wipe faster than our TP?
No. So just wait me out here. No. So it's low profiles, right? So where we've got a big 60 profile here, it can last you a while, right?
Yeah.
You
We've
can
got
use-
the one
You
for
can
the
use it a few
potholes, you know.
times. So this is the same. The roll is the same size, but it's very low profile. There's not a lot of profile added to that. So you go through rolls quite quickly. And it's not a run flat, so you need to make sure that you've got spare
Oh
rolls.
man, a run flat TP. That's
You need to make sure you've got more rolls in supply. So
How did we get here?
so they believe in low profile,
Toilet
profile
paper-
TP.
The toilet paper recipe.
I love it.
Anyway, that was just the interesting fact.
Getting back to the Julia's.
So carbs and cock poppy. Okay.
Getting back to the Julia's Nürburgring lap time, actually. I don't know if you two've seen that lap time. Like the actual video footage of it.
Fabio Franchia, I've chatted to the guy
Dude,
before. He's a
that,
legend.
That guy's a fucking legend. But anyways, the best part of that entire thing for me is, I think a week before that, the GT3 just set the new record, right? And
No, so
then,
let me so I can quickly give you the details on that.
okay.
So Alpha setup, they broke the lap record with a 7:39 with a manual QV
Yes.
set by Fabio Franchia. Then just like a month or so later, Porsche got their factory driver full kit roll
That's
cage
exactly what I
inside,
wanted to get
and
to
it
now.
was the Panamera Turbo S, the top of the line one that cost about twice as much as the Alpha. They broke they put up a 7:38, so they broke it by 1 second. A week later, Fabio Franchia rocks up with his t-shirt and his jeans.
Yeah.
In a, I don't know, stock standard these things are. Everybody lies, but he rocks up with a Giulia with the auto
Pedals.
one,
Yeah.
and he smashes it with a 732.
So that's the point I want to go get to is Porsche came with kit roll cage because they must allowed to have a roll cage, different seat in the car, a full halo seat, everything, team, what. The Giulia, like Andre said, the Oak rocked up, stock seats, no roll cage.
No, sorry, the seats weren't stock. They had to make extra place for his balls. That
okay, true.
So brave.
So like the M3, that ball holder, they probably had to put that in there.
Currently, I don't think with what M3 drivers look like these days, I don't think that's really a necessary feature on the car anymore.
But that's so awesome to me. Like the dude just rocked up there as if he's going for a Sunday drive.
But
And
he's a legend, that guy.
beats the crap out of a Porsche.
That makes me. I mean, there was not to go to talk about. There's something about the way that the Italians, I guess, in motorsport, the way they do things. It makes me think of there was a insert about Lancia on Top Gear, especially about the rally, the rally cars. And on one of the rallies when they were competing against the Quattros, they went out into the stage. I can't remember which one, but there was a snowy conditions.
And then they threw the
037.
salt on the
They threw salt on the.
and they also did tire changes once they went from snow to tar.
Yes.
They did tire changes because that was
Yes.
quicker than them running, let's say, all season tires all the way up.
It's like really this innovative sort of
They are
like
innovative.
thinking outside of the box.
Innovative in inverted commas. They're racing the rule book, not the other cars.
So
You
using
just think
aluminium-
outside of the box, eh?
Using aluminium
Shrewd.
for roll cages and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know?
No, really, you use wood, bro. It's much lighter.
Or those Italian toilet rolls. Anyway, guys, I think that's pretty much what we got time for. We went a little bit off topic there at the end, but I think, like I said, the sports car recipe is wide open for interpretation. It's going to be kind of what you personally make of it. And there's no right or wrong answer, I don't think. There are certain things that sort of uniformly run through. But I still think that my definition at the start of saying that it's a car that's fun to drive, at its core, that is what it's built for. I think that's kind of the direction that everything goes in.
And the design or the form needs to be
Yeah,
a coupe or a roadster,
a coupe or
two-seater
roadster,
/ two-door.
two-door,
It can't be like a big
two-seater
car. It
kind
can't
of
be a
thing.
saloon or a
No,
sedan.
exactly. And yeah, I think the thing that keeps coming back out of everything that we've discussed is that there's no defined set of numbers or parameters or specifications that makes a sports car. It's more about the total package. It's how everything fits together. It's how the drivetrain balances with the handling and the braking, how the feel of the steering balances with the weight of the car. It's a very subjective feel-based thing rather than a spec sheet. You
Yeah, I agree
can't
with
tell
that.
whether a car's a spec, read a spec sheet and say this is a sports car. It's all about the feel of the thing.
Seat of the pants feeling.
So for you guys listening at home or on the road or in the car or wherever you may be, drop us something in the comments. Let us know what you think. What makes a great sports car and why the 350Z is too heavy.
Please,
Sorry,
we
I
have
had to
no
get
clue.
one last jab in. It's just, we have to. And we will see you guys in the next one.
Stay classy.
No,
Stay classy, San Diego.
No,
say.
no.